Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum, Irini Mazisu, Pax Vobiscum. Peace be unto you. Welcome to 1 Samuel chapter 25. We have 44 verses. This will be a longer video than usual. Beginning in verse 3, we see a description of the wife of Nabal. Her name is Abigail, or Abigail, or Abigail in the Greek. It says she is very beautiful, or was very beautiful in person. So not just her face, but her whole head to toe. In the Masoretic, beautiful countenance. So her full appearance, her whole appearance. There's an omission of harsh in regards to Nabal being a harsh individual. Okay, and churlish simply means difficult. There's an addition of he is of the house of Caleb. So that is not in the Septuagint at all. Verse 5, David instructs his young men to ask Nabal how he is. And the footnote reads, concerning peace. Ask him how he's doing concerning peace, or just ask him concerning peace. Verses peace. No, greet him in my name. Sorry, greet him. Simply greet him. In verse 6, and you shall say to Nabal, may you and your house seasonably prosper, and all yours be in prosperity. Verses, in the footnote says in the Greek, be in health. So be in health or in prosperity. Okay, hold on a moment. Let me just pause this recording for a moment here. Okay, pardon the interruption. So in the Masoretic, it simply says peace and various forms of peace. Peace to you, your house, and peace to all you have. A good question would be, what would you prefer? Would you prefer someone greeting you peace, as I do in this channel, or prosperity, prosper? It's one thing to be in peace, shalom. It's another thing to be prosperous and to be in good health. They're both good, but depends. Prosperous means you are moving forward in favor of Elohim. You're prospering. You are increasing. Peace simply could mean stagnation. Verse 7, hindered them not. So this is talking about his men. David's men did not hinder the shepherds, and they did not demand anything from them. In the Masoretic, it says they did not hurt them. So there's a lot more space to abuse them or take advantage of them. And there was nothing missing to them. There's an addition in verse 8 of to your servants. Where's that? To your servants. Oh, that's in the Masoretic. Okay. Whatever comes to your hand, give to David, not to the servants. Verse 10, there's an omission of sprang up. It shows how, at least if you read between the lines, that Nabal is a person who is emotionally charged, who is not so much a pensive individual, reacts off the cuff. Verse 11, wine versus water. Verse 14, servants of Nabal versus the young men, perhaps of David or of Nabal, depends on how you read that. They turned away from them. Okay, I wasn't in the right verse. There it is, Nabal. So servants versus young men, and then we see turned away from them. He turned away from them, Nabal did. versus he railed on them, which means to swoop down on them. Verse 15, there is an addition of as long as we were conversant with them, which means to walk with them. Verse 16, they were a wall. They were as a wall round about us. So the men of David were like a wall to them while they were in the field, to these shepherds, versus they treated us well as long as we walked / were conversant with them in the fields. Verse 17, describing Nabal as a vile character versus a son of Belial. You'll see that continually. It will change the adjective. Verse 18, fine flour versus parched corn, which actually corn is not there. That was inserted by the translators. 1 homer or omer of dried grapes versus 100 clusters. Verse 21, there's an addition of surely in vain. I have kept all this, their possessions. There's an omission of that he should wrong me. We did not order the taking anything of all his goods, versus nothing was missed of all that unto him. So it's worded differently, but their possessions were intact. Nothing went missing. Nothing was taken. Verse 22, I believe David says this in his heart, because we see David said, maybe this is out loud, perhaps in his heart, but I'm reading this as it is in his heart, but it can be read either way. In any case, he makes this statement, says a statement that he will kill all the males of Nabal, versus if I leave of all that pertain to him by morning light, specifically any that pisseth against the wall. Interesting expression. So leaving them versus killing them. So I think it's a lot more, leaving, it's actually leave in both. Okay. I wouldn't say it's a big difference or any difference. It's just expressed differently. Okay, moving on. Verse 24. So this is Abigail speaking to David, making an intervention here to save her husband and the household. She immediately says to David, my wrong versus my iniquity, me iniquity. Ears versus audience, speak in your ears. So she's speaking to him one-to-one, it seems. I don't see the mention of his men around, but they might be around as well to protect him. But in any case, her priority is to speak to David. Now we notice in verse 25, again describing Nabal as a pestilent man, which means a deadly man, versus a man of Belial. Not deadly as in that he's a dangerous man, but deadly in the sense that his ways lead to death. He's not a wise individual. Verse 26, coming against innocent blood versus coming to blood. So the innocent aspect was removed, was omitted in the Masoretic. Verse 27, accept this token. In Greek, it's a blessing. Token of goodwill. So notice the part of goodwill was omitted. In the Greek, since it isn't defined as blessing, it's not wildly different or drastically different, simply that it is a blessing of goodwill or a token of goodwill. Verse 28, remove versus forgive. Now, only God can forgive, but she's asking remove the trespass of your servant because he does have authority in some ways to simply remove it or disregard it, perhaps is another way to put it. Yah or Adonai fights the battles of my Lord, who is David, versus my Adon, who is David, fights the battles of Adonai, who is Yah. So in the Septuagint, Adonai fights for David. In the Masoretic, David fights for Adonai. So I thought about this and meditated on it. And the truth is, if we really simplify it, the truth is Adonai is our support. He's David's support. He's our helper. He's the one who fights our battles. It's not David who is fighting the battles for Yah because he cannot. So that's the difference there. Verse 31, abomination and offense to my Lord versus grief and nor offense of heart. There's also an omission, a significant difference here, because it talks about innocent blood. Innocent blood. Shedding innocent blood. There's an omission again of to do her good. Remember your handmaid. Don't just remember her, but remember to do her good. And what was the good that David will eventually do? We'll see at the end. Verse 33. Conduct. Blessed be your conduct, your behavior, versus blessed be your advice. She did advise him in some ways, but her conduct really was the difference maker here. She could give advice, but her conduct could be lacking, and that would have still jeopardized their lives, her life and her husband's life. Significant difference in verse 33, there's an omission of then I said. Then I said, where is this? Okay, it's verse 34. Let me make a correction here. Then I said, what is David saying? Then I said, there shall not. So what is David doing here by saying to her, then I said? David is being fully transparent with Abigail about what he had said previously, whether in his heart or out loud. He gives her sort of a behind-the-scenes look into what had occurred when she was not present, versus David is simply being factual about what would happen to in the situation. Verse 35, significant difference of petition. I accepted your petition. The footnote in the Greek says the Greek face. So I accepted your face. Not sure how to understand that, but in the Masoretic it says I have accepted your person. So he accepts her plea in the Septuagint, versus David is showing Abigail partiality. He is showing favoritism towards her person for who she is, which is not something we should be doing, quite frankly. Verse 37, he recovered from his wine, Nabal did. He sobered up, versus the wine came out of Nabal, which can be read in wild ways, but the sense is that he sobered up in both. Verse 39, judged versus pleaded. So Adonai has judged the cause, not pleaded. He didn't have to plead the cause. He judged it. He has full authority and full power over everything. Didn't have to plead his cause. He judged righteously. And it says here, he delivered his servant from the power of evil. The footnote reads, delivered his servant from the hand of wicked men. So both make sense. However, in the Masoretic it says, kept his servant from evil. So in the Septuagint, Adonai has saved David from the power of evil or the hand of wicked men, versus he saved David from doing evil, perhaps. That could be another way to read it. And it says he spoke concerning Abigail versus he communed with Abigail. So I would say that's it's a difference that's notable, because David is speaking to others about her, not communicating directly with her in this moment, in the context, in this narrative. The next verse confirms the veracity of the Septuagint, that it is indeed David speaking concerning her, because it reads here, "So the servants of David came to Abigail to Carmel and spoke to her, saying," see, so you can see it's the servants of David who spoke to Abigail, not David directly. It was him sending messengers, and spoke to her, saying, "David has sent us to you," and this is the good that he eventually does for her, or to her. "He's going to take you to himself for a wife." And so that's it. So David is starting his collection of wives. First it's Abigail, next is Ahinoam, or Ahinoam. And he also, recall, has Michal, but unfortunately Saul gave Michal to another man, who is Phalti. No pun intended. His name is Phalti, son of Amis or Laish, who was of Roma or Agalim. So that's all for this chapter. Thank you very much for your time. I hope this was helpful in understanding who David was a little bit better, and also Abigail, the wife of Nabal, or I should say widow, because he eventually died, and that was an interesting circumstance that took place after the truth was revealed to him from Abigail. And it says that it says about, what was it, 10 hours? I can't remember. 10 days later. It came to pass in the morning. His wife told him these words, and his heart died within him. So that's a good question. Why would his heart die after hearing about this positive report? Maybe because he didn't know it was David. Maybe he was unaware who David was. Or maybe he realized his wrong behavior. Maybe he woke up to the truth about himself. It's hard to say. But in any case, he became as a stone. So does that mean he was paralyzed? Or he simply lost motivation, became depressed? It's hard to say. In any case, Adonai, after 10 days from this event, Adonai smote Nabal, so caused his death, whether it's by a stroke, heart attack, we don't know, but he was, his life ended at that point 10 days later. Okay, so that's the end of the video. Thanks again for your time. I bid you all Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum, Irini Mazisu, Pax Vobiscum, peace be unto you, and Maranatha.